Morning, Internet. I'd like to say or make an announcement that my life is in complete disarray right now. I had breakfast with two of my friends yesterday. One, Planet Doug. If you've watched any videos from people in Kuala Lumpur or traveling around Southeast Asia, then you know Doug. He has a very popular YouTube channel. And he was asking me some questions about where my base was. When I go somewhere, I guess the question there is, when I leave someplace, where is it that I always return to? And that really made me think, because until the last few years, my base has always been here in Kuala Lumpur. Because when I left here, no matter where I was going or for how long, I'd always end up returning here. Because I worked here, I lived here, I was here long term. My work visa was 2 years renewable, so every 2 years I would renew it, or my company would renew it. You can't just come in and get a work visa, you have to have a reason for actually applying for one. But then that all ended. The contracts that the company had ended, so when my work visa expired, I left. Kuala Lumpur was no longer my base, so to speak, or my temporary home. So when Doug asked me that, I realized that my home or my base is now back in Pennsylvania, where I started from, my hometown. Some of you already know it, Carbondale, Pennsylvania. So when I leave someplace, eventually that's where I'm going to return to, Carbondale, Pennsylvania. And it just makes you wonder that when you do travel long term, what is the base? Where do you go back to? I mean, when my work visa expired, I had to change everything. Not that it was a big deal, but my Facebook page, I think it should say Carbondale, Pennsylvania now is where my home is. Even my kayak search page has to change the airport that they search from, my home airport. So there's a lot of little tiny things that you do to establish where you're from, what you return to, and by extension, a lot of those things define who or what you are. The pandemic forced me to stay in Pennsylvania for 2 years. I couldn't leave the United States. Of course, I'm not the only one. There are a lot of people that couldn't travel during the pandemic without going through a lot of different hoops that I just wasn't interested in doing. So I cooled my heels in Pennsylvania until the restrictions on travel mostly were lifted. But now that borders are opening up around the world, people are taking off, which that's one of the reasons, at least in the United States, that was given for some of the travel disruptions last summer in 2022, because all of a sudden everybody wanted to travel. That's when I started traveling again. But as far as ties to your home country, I made a video about this several years ago, which I'll link at the top of the screen, about how you shouldn't break ties with your home country. And these are simple things like your driving license. You always need a driving license somewhere. And I went through my adventure of trying to get a Malaysian driving license in 2017 when my US license expired. And to answer your question, yes. Can you use a US license to drive in Malaysia? The answer to that is yes, you can, if you have an international driving permit, which is easy to get. You just go United States, you can get them at either the DMV in your state, or you can get them from the AAA Motor Club There's several places you can get one. They're not difficult. If you have a driving license, you can get a driving permit, international driving permit. But the only reason I had to get a Malaysian driving license was because my US one had expired and I could no longer drive in Malaysia with it. So it would be a simple matter simply to renew my license when I was back in the United States. But since it expired, I would have to actually go through the process of getting another license, which meant taking tests, driving tests, things like that. It was just easier, believe it or not, it was easier to do it in Malaysia than it was in the United States. The other thing is a phone number. If you have a bank in your home country, as many of you already know, they like to send two-step verification, which requires them to send an SMS to you with a verification number or something in it that you can verify that, yes, it's actually you trying to complete some kind of transaction. So if somehow you mistakenly let your phone service in your home country expire, close down, be disconnected, you are disconnected from that SMS service. You will no longer receive SMSs from your bank. They may send them, but you're not going to get them. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. If you say, well, I'm moving to X country for 5 years, I'm going to cancel my phone service with AT&T or T-Mobile or whatever it is. The best plan is to think of something else, because that one, letting the service expire, is a bad idea. And there are other connections also. Email address. I don't want to really get into the details of this. That's another video. And there's already videos out there that I made about this. But you should have a single email address that you use for everything. Everything personal. It's your email address. Use it. Not your business, not your work, your personal email address. That's the one your bank should have. That's the one your phone company should have. You need to get these connections in your home country, and when you travel long term, you need to maintain them. You can figure out ways to do it at a lower cost, but the main thing is you need to maintain them. As you can see, nature has its way with taking back walkways, streets, things like that, unless you stay on top of it. And normally these walkways are very well maintained, but right about now, it looks like the foliage or trees or whatever you want to call these things, plants, are starting to take over the walkway, which is not bad. It makes the walk along this part of the streets a little bit quieter, so it's not that bad of a thing. The reason I started off the video noting that my life was in disarray is that tomorrow I leave Kuala Lumpur and I'm flying to northern Thailand. I'll be there for a couple of weeks. And then I come back to Kuala Lumpur, and then sometime after that, 3 to 4 weeks after that, I'll be returning to the United States for about 2 to 3 months. I'll be spending the holidays, the year-end holidays, in the United States, and then probably won't hit the road again until March or April of 2023. Now, the reason I say disarray is because when I lived in Kuala Lumpur before, it was easy. It was easy to say, yeah, I'll be back on this such and such a date. or you would expect to come back here and stay for a long period of time. And when I had a work permit, that was easy to do. I could stay here indefinitely as long as I just kept renewing my work permit. My official status in Malaysia right now, though, is as a tourist. And I'm not entitled to stay indefinitely. If I wanted to do that, I would have to apply for some kind of long-term residence visa. Now, Malaysia has those, and in fact, it's introducing new ones. I think for people like me, called a digital nomad, or it's a visa that's good for 1 year. It's renewable to 2, and you're allowed to come and go, and you can live in Malaysia for that amount of time. But right now, my status here is just as a tourist. I don't have a visa. Tourists don't get visas in Malaysia, at least not from the United States. U.S. citizens can travel to Malaysia and stay there for 90 days without a visa. The stamp you get at immigration control is what they call a social visit pass. It's not a visa. A lot of people make this mistake and say, well, I have a tourist visa. What they really mean is they have a tourist pass. A visa requires an application process, and you are sort of vetted to varying degrees, and it's actually something that you usually have to pay for. So if you have a visa, you know you went through some kind of application process. The tourist pass, however, is just show up with a valid passport, and they will welcome you to the country for, in my case, 90 days. In other countries, it might be shorter or longer. I'm not aware of what those other requirements might be, but that's how I'm in the country now. When I go to Thailand, it's pretty much the same setup, except it's not 90 days. It used to be 30 days, and I think now it's 45 days. But the idea is the same. You're not really getting a visa, you're getting an exemption, a visa exemption, which is another form of visiting pass. And if you wanted to stay longer, you would have to think of other ways to apply for a visa to make that happen. So what else is happening in Malaysia this week? Well, Malaysia is getting ready for a general election. This will be their 15th since independence. That's coming up on November 19th, which is about a little over 2 weeks away. And I think in another video I mentioned about how sensible Malaysian elections seem to be. Selamat pagi. In that they limit campaigning to a certain amount of time. In fact, they announced that the general election will be on November 19th, but campaigning is not allowed to start yet. It'll probably run for 10 days or 2 weeks. There'll be signs everywhere. Cars will be driving around town with speakers. Candidates will be holding public meetings. You know, the typical campaign stuff. But it's in a limited amount of time. And reason I say that it seems to be sensible is that I'm reminded that the United States presidential election starts pretty much after the previous president is inaugurated, and you're bombarded with all kinds of political ads, meetings, speeches, you name it. It just is overbearing. Malaysia has a lot of problems politically, but the way they conduct campaigns doesn't seem to be one of them. Also on the radar, maybe not this week, but coming up very soon, is the flood season. I don't know if you can hear that, but the monorail just flew over our head. And here comes another one. You'll probably see it up there in the video, maybe. Maybe not. Anyhow, the flood season is about to start. And you're probably wondering, Bill, why would they hold an election during the flood season? Well, you wouldn't be the only one to ask that question. There are a lot of people asking that question, and there's no really good answers. That's what they're doing. Nobody knows whether places will actually flood during the election or preventing like people from voting and stuff like that. But a lot of people think it's a good possibility that it might. But here in Kuala Lumpur, we are getting more rain, especially in the morning, but it's not anything that leads to flooding. As you can see here, this is the Klang River running through town, and it's nowhere near flood stage. It's not even high. Something else that happened is that YouTube decided that one of my videos had bullying and harassment material in it. Now, naturally, you get an email from YouTube and you say, we're removing this video, such and such a video, because it contains personal information and it violates our bullying and harassment policy. So naturally, I went to check on it right away. The video in question was how I got my international driving permit video, and the personal information that I was showing was my international driving permit. But they decided to take it down because I was bullying and harassing, presumably myself. So naturally, I appealed it. I told them I'm showing my own personal information. It's not somebody else's. It doesn't have anything of a nature where people could find me or do anything like that. I wasn't exposing someone or picking on someone or harassing anybody. So I sent that appeal in, and within 20 minutes, I got another email saying that my appeal was rejected. So you know right away that the fact that it happened that quickly, that there absolutely was no human interaction there. It was all AI. AI found it. I appealed it. AI found that there was nothing in the video that was changed. So as far as it was concerned, it was still, I guess, in violation of their policy. All of a sudden there's traffic at a junction that normally doesn't have any traffic. But the bottom line is, if you're looking for my video on how to get an international driving permit, you won't find it anymore because YouTube took it away. I'm gonna have to make another one, and this time I'll just be careful not to show my own personal permit, and I think that should be okay. But they're very unhelpful. They just send you a note saying that it violates this policy. They don't tell you how it violates this policy or what part of the video violates this policy. They just say it does, which is kind of, it's vague. It just doesn't help to know that you're violating a policy that when you check on it, you really can't figure out why you're violating the policy. And when you appeal it, you're hoping that they'll give you some insight so that you don't mistakenly violate the policy again. And even in their information pages that we talk about these various violations, not my personal ones, but just violations in general, apparently sharing your own information is perfectly okay. And that's what I was doing. But they still took the video down. So there's a problem with the AI that does this checking, because that video was up for 2 years, and this email and this video being taken down happened within the last month. So this is obviously something new. They've developed some AI that goes through all the videos and looks for stuff that looks like it might be personal information and then sends out these emails. I'm sure that's what happened, because there was absolutely no human interaction. A normal human would see, oh, this is his personal information. Of course, it's okay to publish that. But no one did that. So it has to be a machine. I'm back at ABC1 Bistro, right underneath the KL Central monorail station. My walk is about halfway done. I think it's about 5 or 6 kilometers from my house. And after I get done with breakfast, I'm just going to walk back. That's pretty much it for the going on with KL this week. Like I said, in a couple of days, I'm going to be heading off to Chiang Mai, Thailand, which is up in the northern part of the country. I've been there before. You can check out some of those videos in the playlist at the top. And thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Hey folks, thanks for watching. A recent study by J.D. Power and Associates found that 98% of those who subscribe to this channel have all of their wildest dreams come true. Think about it. Be seeing you.